What's up, guys? Average Kiwi Guy here. How y'all doing? So I checked out the pilot episode for The Gifted, and I gotta say I came out of it liking it more than what I did with Inhumans. This I felt like it wasn't. It has some explaining to do, right? It's got some explaining to do. There's a lot of stuff that they've purposefully not told us, not sort of explained, but it didn't feel as bad as what Inhumans was. Where in Humans you felt like you came in halfway through a movie and had no idea what was going on. That was kind of what what was doing. And I dig these characters a heck of a lot more than I do the Inhumans characters. So, and the effects and all that I thought were far better in this. So, I'm very excited to get an X-Men type show. I think we've been looking for one for a while. Legion is its own special little child. It's batshit crazy and a lot of stuff happens in it. I think this one's more of a general, very, kind of more toned down. It's nowhere near as crazy as Legion. It's more like what you would expect from an X-Men, sort of show, which is good. But I feel like it's in an interesting setting. It's in this world where the X-Men and the Brotherhood are all well known. They're all known and all that. But they've sort of gone away. They've disappeared. And people don't know where they are. And sort of no one knows where they are. And no one knows if they're coming back, or no one knows what's going on. And, that's where they've kind of left the viewer as well. Like, you're interested in, like, well, what's happening here? Where's Professor Xavier? Where's, Logan? Where's all these people? Where is this in the time frame? In the time frame of, stuff happening. So they've got a lot of explaining to do there, but I think they want to use that as a way of keeping you invested in it. Just to learn what's going on in this, in this time zone, in this time frame. So I am interested in which timeline they are following, though. Because that's the tricky part with X-Men, is they have so many timelines now that they need to kind of explain where they're going. I have a feeling, though, this is setting up to be kind of like a prequel towards Logan. Logan was in a world where, mutants were, kind of hunted down and they were treated as sort of weapons and all that. And this feels like they're at that point where, Professor Xavier and, Logan and all that, they're off hiding. Something bad's happened. X-Men may have been all killed. Brotherhood and all that. Magneto's gone off somewhere. Everyone's gone. And for me, that feels like they're sort of building this into maybe a prequel prior to Logan, which would be kind of interesting. I kind of like that, that it would do that. And it would give like a bit of gravitas to this show if it was. But they're not saying where that is. But I like to think it is. Because I don't think we're going to get any like X-Men cameos in this. I really don't. Like, I would love to, like maybe a lower X-Men, or, you don't have to bring in like Jean Grey or anything like that. Like, just someone to explain what's happening with them, I think would be a good thing. So, character-wise, like, there are some interesting characters in this. It's more centered around the Strucker family. And I know, like, I sort of like, man, that name sounds familiar for the X-Men. But I think it's meant to sound kind of like the Strikers. So, it's Strucker. And it's centered around the two kids in the Strucker family, which is Andy and Lauren. And Andy, he's kind of the person who sets us all off for the family, where he sort of has this telekinetic episode which sort of nearly brings down the hall that this dance is happening in. And this is his awakening of his powers. And in turn, you realize that the older sister, she's got her powers as well, but she's had them for a few years and she's learned to control them. Where Andy, he hasn't. He's just realized he's got them, and he can't control them yet, and he's still learning, and he's a little bit dangerous. Like a lot of telekinetic mutants seem to be. It seems to be a very powerful ability. And that's where they're definitely taking Andy. because there are several times in this episode where, you know, he nearly brings down a dance, you know, the whole like hall for the dance and all that. You know, he nearly brings down, he destroys a vending machine when he's trying to like learn how to use his ability. He just can't seem to turn it off because it connects with the very powerful emotions that he has, like anger and just, you know, just wanting to get people away from him. And right at the end, when they're trying to get away from these sort of like spider drone things, which was a kind of an interesting scene, which we'll get into. He basically rips them apart, where none of the others seem to be able to deal with these drones. He can just pick them all up and rip them apart. So he's a very powerful mutant. He's very powerful. He seems to be on a higher, you know, power level than all the others around him. Whereas Sister, she can manipulate air and water and all that and sort of compress them and dense them into like shields and different things like that. And, you know, she can kind of use her ability as like a, you know, telekinetic ability, but it's more sort of elemental, I think, which looks cool. Like, I got to admit, like her bubble shields and all that look very, very cool. Like, I quite like the look of them. Like, we haven't seen something. We've seen stuff like it, but it's a little bit of a twist on it. So I like it. By the way, effects and the powers and all the rest of it in this, damn solid. Look really good. Far better than the humans. And then and then that in turn brings the parents into it, and they sort of got to protect their kids, and they try and get them out. You know, and that's interesting with the father, because the father, he is a lawyer that's dealing with the mutants that get arrested, and he's trying to build a case against the mutant underground, which we'll get into as well. And that, you know, he sort of has to go on the other side of this. You know, he has to go on the other side and, you know, kind of become one of the hunted that, you know, to protect his kids. So that's interesting. I dig it. I dig that. But they have no powers. Parents have no powers yet. We don't know, but the gene's got to come from someone, but it can obviously skip a generation probably. But yeah, so it seems to follow them, and then you have the Mutant Underground, which is interesting because it's like a countrywide or worldwide organization, and you're like, you know, who's running it? Like, he's, you know, maybe someone who was a part of a certain team, you know, maybe a professor of sorts, maybe, I don't know. But, you know, that definitely seemed to have a network going, and it's sort of like a bit of an underground that's trying to get all these mutants out and, you know, protect them and, you know, just get them to countries that don't have these laws that America has with dealing with mutants. And yeah, that essentially it all starts from there, and that's when we get into the underground guys, where you have Polaris. Polaris is actually kind of a big character. She's like, family wise, she's very big because she is actually the illegitimate daughter of Magneto. Like that's some big shit. That's some big stuff right there. You know, and her powers are very similar to his. Like, she deals with like electromagnetism and stuff, and, you know, she can, you know, move guns and cars and all the rest of it. I like her powers. I like her powers a lot. And, you know, if they can play on that stuff a little bit, you know, at the moment she's sort of captured because she gets captured when they try to rescue Blink. But if they can tap into her family history a little bit, that would be very interesting. That'd be pretty cool. And then you have Eclipse, who was, you know, he was just created for the show. Like, I can't see any mention of him in any other like X-Men comics or anything like that. Like, he's a brand new character, and he's in a relationship with Polaris, and, you know, that Polaris is pregnant, you know, and that's sort of a little bit of a family, and, you know, now he really wants to get her out. So that's where, you know, he'll help the Struckers if the father helps him get Polaris back. So that's pretty cool. It gives it a bit of a to and fro, and his powers are pretty cool. Like, he's like sort of like, you know, light, and like I think he can control like photons and stuff, and he can create light beams, and, when he got shot, like he gets shot in one of the early scenes, he actually has light inside of him. Like the wound he has is like light coming out of him, which is kind of cool. I kind of dig that. Then you get Thunderbird, John Proudstar, a semi-well-known X-Men. He's sort of been brought to this, sort of generation of X-Men. Sort of the first time we've seen him in a live-action thing. I don't know if they've adjusted his powers or anything. I always thought he just had like superhuman strength, and he was, sort of like this, kind of like the Captain America type powers. But he was he's kind of being used here as like a tracker. Like, he seems to be able to sense where people are. He has heightened senses. His eyesight can see around corners and stuff. I don't know, but I think the combination of like all of these like heightened senses and like sort of like perfect superhuman sort of thing, he can track really well. So that's kind of cool. I like his abilities a lot. And he's kind of a cool character. I dig him. And then we have, obviously we have Blink, who's probably the most direct link to the X-Men movies, because we got her in Days of Futures Past when she was fighting in the future scenes, with, the older Magneto and Professor X and stuff when they were fighting the Sentinels. But she's played by a different actor in this one. And she's sort of learning how to use her portals as well. Like she doesn't able to fully form them quite yet. Like she struggles to keep them open. I think she's just realized that she has these powers, and she escapes from a detention center, and this gets the Underground to go out and try and protect her, and Polaris gets captured, and yeah, a lot of stuff happens there. But it's cool to have Blink. It's cool to have Blink because it's, a character that I think a lot of people know and have seen, and then they can kind of give credence to the show. I think she's a needed character to have, and she's kind of cool. We also caught a glimpse of another character called Sage. She was never said, they never said, like, they've never really introduced her, that she was Sage, but I looked up on the credits and stuff to see like who was in there. And Sage, she's also in the X-Men as well, so that's really cool. So they're bringing in a lot of semi-known characters. Like they're bringing in like the lower tiered X-Men to kind of, get this thing started. So which is probably a good thing, because if you started bringing in like Jean Grey, Cyclops and all that, then this is just a TV adaptation. If they're going to link this to the movie universe in any way, which, Marvel and all that loves to do, then they have to use these lower, mutants to do this. So, but for me, like, what I really want to know is the X-Men stuff, the Brotherhood stuff. Like, where are they? What are they doing? Like, this is what's going to pull me back to the show. And I think this is what's going to pull a lot of people back to the show. Obviously, scene-wise, there were some good scenes in this. Like, I liked the sort of awakening of Andy's powers, where, he basically just unleashes this giant telekinetic attack. Like the shower heads bend over, and like the tiles are flying off the walls, and the walls are going around, and everything's falling down, and it was good. It was really good, and I liked the effects. They didn't look cheap. They didn't look nasty. They were solid. They were solid, and I appreciate that. So, no, that was really good. The chase scene with Blink at the start, and Polaris getting involved in stuff, thing with moving the cars around and the guns, and her stopping bullets, very like your father, and all that. Every scene that had the powers, where they used their powers, turned out really well. It turned out really well. I was quite impressed with how solid it looked. And then obviously the sort of final scene that we get, which is the Sentinel agency sort of catches up with the Struckers and the Underground. And they unleash these like spider bots, like these spider drones that can like, self-repair themselves, and like very high tech. So that this world is not, this is why I feel like this is going to be in that sort of Logan timeline, because Logan's timeline, they had like those drones, and then they had like cybernetic arms and like soldiers and all that. So this feels like it's going that way because of the technology that we're seeing, but it has normal stuff too. Like it has normal cars and normal things like that. So I don't know. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how they explain this. But yeah, these drones, they go after them, and the underground guys, they're terrified of these things. They're designed to capture them. They're designed to hold them down so that the Sentinel agency guys can come up and either detain them or kill them. Eclipse is struggling to deal with them. Lauren, she's trying to hold them back, but they're breaking through a shield. And then obviously we see Andy come in and just sort of telekinesis and just rip them all apart, and kind of show his potential power level is like much higher than all the other mutants that are around him. He's definitely kind of dangerous. He's definitely kind of dangerous there. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of excited to see the next episode. I really am. And to see, obviously we saw the father get captured, and I've seen some clips of him sort of dealing with Polaris as well, like when they're in the detention center. And like I said, I think the draw of trying to understand like where the X-Men have gone, is this connected to the cinematic universe? Like, where does this all fit? It intrigues you to go back and watch it. Is it perfect? Hell no. It's not a perfect show, and like a lot of things, like the parents flip on them very easily, and they I get that they're parents and that they would always protect their kids, but they were very quickly to go from being very scared of mutants to being like very accepting of them. And I think the pace of the show, like, well, at least this episode was very fast, and I felt like they could have done with a scene or two where they just took a breath. Like even the scene where the kids are trying to control their powers, and Lauren's trying to teach Andy like how to use his powers a bit. I felt like that was a good break, but it kind of got quite hectic in the end of it, so it didn't really work out that way. So maybe they got to address their pacing a little bit. But overall, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the episode. I enjoyed the show, and I'm interested because this is to get a live action X-Men show, and this type of sort of this time frame, sort of after the fact of X-Men, and of X-Men being known and all that. I dig it, and I'm interested. I am interested in it. So yeah, I think it's worth a watch. It's worth a watch if you haven't checked it out. But yeah. Alright guys, that's it for us. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you next time. Peace.